There's a box of baking soda sitting in your kitchen right now. Probably costs you less than $1. And the pest control company that came through your neighborhood last spring charged your neighbor $400 to spray his yard and kitchen for roaches and ants. $400. For a problem you can handle yourself with something you already own, I want to show you exactly how to use that box of baking soda to shut down a roach and ant problem in your home. Not theory, not a science experiment. What actually works, what doesn't, and the one mistake that makes the whole thing fail before it even starts. Now, most people, when they hear baking soda kills bugs, they think you just sprinkle it around and walk away, like spreading salt on a sidewalk after a snowstorm. That's not how this works. And if you've already tried it that way and it didn't do anything, that's exactly why the bugs ignored it completely. I'll explain why in a minute because the reason tells you everything about how to do it right. I spent 38 years walking the woods of Pennsylvania, and I'll tell you something they don't put on the bottle. The pest control industry built its entire business model on you not knowing what's already in your pantry. The products they sell you at Walmart, the sprays, the foggers, the plug-in traps, most of them work for 3 days and then the bugs are back. I've watched that cycle repeat itself for 4 decades, and every time it repeats, somebody's paying for another service call. Let's start with roaches, because roaches are the one that makes people feel like their house is condemned. It's not. Roaches come inside for exactly three things: food, water, and warmth. That's it. They're not drawn to you personally. They're drawn to the grease behind your stove and the moisture under your sink. Once you understand that, you understand why the baking soda method works the way it does. Here's the science in plain language. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. When a roach ingests it, it reacts with the acids inside the roach's digestive system. Gas builds up. A roach cannot release that gas the way you or I would. The pressure builds, and the roach dies. That's it. That's the whole mechanism. Nothing complicated, nothing synthetic, nothing that requires a license to apply. But here's the problem, and this is the part most people miss. Roaches don't like the taste of baking soda. Plain baking soda on the floor, they'll walk right past it. They might as well be walking past a pile of chalk dust. You need a delivery system. You need to hide the baking soda inside something they want so badly they can't resist it. That delivery system is sugar, specifically powdered sugar. Not granulated. Granulated sugar and baking soda are two different grain sizes. A roach or an ant can actually separate them and eat just the sugar and leave the baking soda behind. Powdered sugar and baking soda are close enough in texture and particle size that they can't easily sort them. They take the whole thing. That's a detail that matters. Equal parts. 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of powdered sugar. Mix them dry until they're completely combined. That's your bait. The whole thing costs you maybe 15 cents. Now, placement. This is where most people make the second mistake. They put the bait in the middle of the kitchen floor and wonder why nothing happens. Roaches don't travel in the open if they can help it. They run edges. They stay against walls, under appliances, behind the refrigerator, under the stove, inside cabinet hinges, along the baseboard behind the trash can. Put your bait in those locations. Small amounts, about a tablespoon in a bottle cap, a jar lid, the cap off a plastic bottle. Keep it shallow so they can access it easily, and keep it dry. Moisture will cause the baking soda to clump up and activate prematurely, and then the whole thing is useless. Give it 48 to 72 hours before you start seeing results. This isn't like spraying poison where bugs drop in 5 minutes. The roach has to consume it, go back to wherever it hides, and die there. Some will die faster than others. What you're doing is running a slow attrition campaign. You're thinning the population, not detonating a bomb. Keep the bait stations fresh. Replace them every 2 or 3 days for the first 2 weeks. Don't let them dry out, and don't let moisture get to them. Under the refrigerator, behind the stove, inside the lower cabinet, under the sink, along the baseboard, in the corner near the trash. If you have a drop ceiling or a crawl space under your home, put stations down there too. Roaches breed in the dark, in the moisture, in the places you never look. That's where your bait needs to be. And here's something else nobody talks about. If you've got a water drip under your sink, even a slow one, the kind that just makes the cabinet floor slightly damp over time, that drip is doing more to sustain your roach population than almost anything else. Fix the drip, take away the water source. The baking soda bait is more effective when the bugs don't have 5 other water options available to them. Now, ants. Ants are a different animal, And the method shifts slightly, but the core principle is the same. Baking soda reacts with the formic acid in an ant's digestive system, produces carbon dioxide, and because ants cannot expel gas, the internal pressure becomes fatal. The ant population you see on your counter, those lines of workers marching between your windowsill and your fruit bowl, those are scout ants. They found food and they left a pheromone trail for the rest of the colony to follow. That invisible chemical line is what's bringing hundreds more in behind them. Killing the ones you see doesn't stop the colony. You need the workers to carry the bait back to the nest. This is actually where the baking soda and sugar bait becomes something more sophisticated than it sounds. Worker ants are foragers. They gather food and bring it back. When they ingest a sugar baking soda mix, some of them die before they get back. But some carry it back and share it with other workers through a process called trophallaxis. That's mouth-to-mouth feeding between ants. The baking soda gets introduced into the nest, not in quantities that will wipe out a colony of 50,000 overnight, but enough to start reducing population over 7 to 10 days. Now, for sugar ants, the small black ants that show up in your kitchen every spring and summer, the odorous house ants that smell faintly like rotten coconut when you crush them, the powdered sugar and baking soda mix works well. Same recipe. 1 tablespoon each, mixed dry, placed in bottle caps directly on the ant trails, not near them, on them. You want the workers to walk right into it. Here's the one variation I'll give you for ants that makes this more effective. A drop of water to make the mixture into a very loose paste, not wet, just barely damp enough to hold together. Ants respond better to a paste bait than a dry powder because they can carry it more easily. A small dab on a piece of cardboard, on an index card, or directly in a bottle cap. Place them where you see the trails and leave them alone. Don't spray anything near those areas. Don't wipe down those surfaces with vinegar or citrus cleaner right before you set the bait. Those strong scents will actually repel the ants away from the bait before they get a chance to find it. And if you've ever watched an ant trail disappear and come back 2 days later in the exact same spot, you already know what I'm talking about. The trail itself is the problem. The pheromone is still there on the surface. Even after you've killed the ants, you can see more will follow the same chemical path. That's why you need the bait to work its way back to the colony. Now, I need to be honest with you about something, because I don't make promises I can't back up. For a mild to moderate problem, a few dozen roaches you've spotted in the kitchen, or ant trails coming in through a crack near the window, this method works. I've seen it work. I've recommended it to homeowners in Pennsylvania and Connecticut, and they've come back to me and said it cleared things up in 10 to 14 days for maybe 50 cents in materials. 50 cents. But if you're dealing with a full infestation, roaches living inside your walls, inside your appliances, running across the floor in broad daylight, that's a different situation. That's a population that's been building for months. The baking soda bait will reduce it, but it won't eliminate it on its own. At that point, you'd want to combine it with diatomaceous earth. That's a naturally occurring powder made from fossilized algae that shreds the waxy outer coating of a roach's exoskeleton and causes it to dehydrate. That's a whole separate method. Safe for people, safe for pets when used as directed. That's something I'll cover in another video. For ants specifically, if you're dealing with carpenter ants, the big black ones, the ones that are actually chewing through wood, the sweet bait is less reliable. Carpenter ants don't feed on sugar the same way odorous house ants do. They're after moisture and protein. You'd need a different bait carrier. But for the common ants that invade kitchens in the warm months, the powdered sugar and baking soda method will handle them. Here's what I want you to do right now, before this video ends. Go to your kitchen and look under your refrigerator. Look at the baseboard behind your trash can. Look in the lower cabinet under your sink. If you see any evidence of roach activity droppings that look like ground black pepper, egg casings that look like tiny brown capsules, or grease trails along the wall, set your first bait station tonight. It costs you nothing extra. You already have the baking soda. You probably have the powdered sugar. This is a dollar method for a $400 problem. 38 years of walking properties, setting traps, and watching what works and what doesn't, and the things that work are almost never the expensive ones. That's not an accident. The pest control industry is not in the business of you solving your own problems. But you're here, and that's already a different kind of person than they're counting on. If this helped you, hit that subscribe button and stay with me. I put out a new video every single day. I've got 40 years of methods they don't want you to know about, and I am nowhere near done. Every single one of them comes down to the same thing: common sense, cheap materials, and knowing what the bug actually needs in order to die. That's all this ever was.